Take 8. Is your life kinda complicated? Welcome to One Take, the podcast designed to seek wisdom to live simple, healthy, and happy. We'll get there one take at a time. I'm your host, Yezmin Thomas. Hi everyone, welcome to One Take, the podcast. I am your host, Yezmin Thomas, and I really appreciate you for joining me today. We are going to discuss what ifs of life. What if you dropped anything and everything you had to pursue your dream? Really, think about it. What if? What if you quit your job and went to see the world? What if you quit your job to pursue a passion of yours? What if you were not afraid of doing that anymore? I think everyone has a what if in their lives. Right now, I'm sure you're thinking about it. I'm sure it's been keeping you up at night, and I'm sure you can relate to this. Today, we're going to talk to somebody that had a what if for 10 years before she was able to say, I'm doing this. For 10 years, Lauren Witt wondered, what if one day I could just save a bunch of money to go and see the world? And she did it. It only took her 10 years to make it happen, like she says. But you know what? It was driving her crazy, and she knew she had to do it. Who is Lauren Witt? Lauren Witt is a colleague of mine. She is a woman that knows that she can do anything she puts her mind to. And finally, at the end of 2015, she decided she was going to take the risk. She quit her job, guys. She quit her job for what she hoped to be an entire year of traveling the world. Through this journey, she had a lot of time, obviously. I mean, she was traveling by herself. So a lot of time to think about herself, to evaluate her life, to evaluate her priorities, to find purpose. And at the end of it, she has no regrets. She wouldn't change it for anything in this world. She doesn't know what the next big dream is, but she says it's going to be another adventure. She also documented her trips, and she has a blog that you can read at skywglass.wordpress.com. And I'm going to have links to this on the notes for this episode. So how about we spend this hour talking to Lauren, finding out how much did she have to save? What was that conversation like with her bosses? What was that conversation like with her parents? Because imagine you're going to be traveling the world by yourself for an entire year. I am sure somebody's going to miss you, and I'm sure somebody's going to be wondering whether you're even safe or not doing that. And I don't know many people that have done it, and that's why this interview and this guest is so special to me. It is my honor to present to you guys my featured conversation with my friend and colleague, Lauren Witt. All right, everyone, we are jumping right into this episode. Today, we're talking to a friend of mine, a colleague. She is someone who had a dream and made it happen. And how many of us, first of all, how many of us have even stopped dreaming? I've told you in earlier episodes, I did at a time. I was too busy with the everyday life, and I forgot about my dreams. And I did actually a list, and I wrote it down, and I am going to try to make them happen. I'll tell you about those later. But today we're talking to Lauren Witt. Lauren decided one day that her dream was seeing the world, and she made it happen. And she is here with us to tell us how it all happened. Lauren, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Lauren, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? How do you get to where you are? And then we'll dive into how do you make your dream happen?
Yeah. Well, you kind of mentioned this is a dream of mine, and it's been off and on. You go through life, and it's kind of waves and ups and downs of feeling like you're being fulfilled and feeling like you're not doing enough. And I think that over time, it's just something that just kept coming up. I write lists a lot, and in that, one of the things that I just kept finding myself writing down, if I could do anything in the world and money didn't matter, what would I do? And the first thing is always travel. Well, of course, but then when I dig a little deeper, I want I want to have purpose in life, and I want to have meaning, and I want to feel like I'm contributing. So, how does that fit in, and how do I travel to do that? And um, it, it's not something that with my job, my everyday job, that would really come up. It's not something that I would do. So I just kept putting it off, and you kind of get complacent and comfortable. And I enjoy working. I enjoy having a career and growing and doing what I do. But with that, it kind of every so often I would visit this. I was feeling unsettled, unhappy, and so I would have to think about what it's this search for my passion. What is it that I'm passionate about that would really make me feel like I'm fulfilled in life and I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And so that's kind of where this idea came about. I kind of got the travel bug when I was younger. I watched travel shows and hear about people's travels, and didn't really get to travel too much outside of family trips. And so when I went off to college, I did travel abroad for a semester. And in that time, I really decided I love international travel, and this is something that I want to be able to do throughout my life. So that's what piqued my interest in traveling the world, per se.
So, when you had a chance to go on travels, were those more like shorter trips or family trips? Any time that you decided to just do stuff on your own?
Yeah, yeah. So when I was younger, I think I've always been a family person. So we did family trips. We would go skiing, and that's pretty much what we would do for an annual trip. Um, it, Later in life, we would do a couple little beach things. Went to Florida one time, nothing too extravagant. And I think you hear about something out of the country, and it just sounded so grand and so big. And it's not something that really anybody in my family did. So it was fascinating to me. And when I was in college, I did go to study abroad, and it was in London. And I had one weekend at the end of that trip before I came back. And I said, I'm going to travel somewhere outside of where I'm studying, outside of my course on my own. Because if I could travel one place in the world, where would it be? And I had to pick something that was feasible and something that I could do there. And at that time, I wanted to see the Vatican City. And that's, growing up and learning about Da Vinci and my love of sculpture, and then just finding out that it's its own country, it's its own place, it's its own thing. And so I went there, and it was pretty much a disaster of a trip. I surprised I even survived. Thankfully, I did, and I'm here to talk about it. But and I'm surprised I traveled after that. But it kind of helped me grow and feel confident that if I could handle myself in that situation on my own for the first time ever, then I can do this. So, yeah.
So, for how long did you entertain the idea of taking everything you had, shutting everything you knew, and just going to see the world?
Close to 10 years.
10 years?
Yes.
Wow.
It was a work in progress, right? I didn't have, when I first thought about it, I needed a job. So I couldn't just straight out of college go and travel. I just didn't have the means, or I didn't have the understanding behind it of what I could do or how I could travel for not as much money. So as time progressed and it kept coming up and kept being an idea, I thought, oh, well, maybe one day. And then that kept being pushed off one day. And then about 2 years, maybe a year and a half prior to leaving, is when I really started buckling down and saying, okay, this is something that I'm going to make happen. So that 2-year frame is really where I was really entertaining. This is what I'm going to do. And I just had to figure out how I was going to get there. And it took a lot of planning. And my plans changed from what they were originally. This year of travel looked like something completely different by the time it came about. But it couldn't have been any better, in the end.
And was there a trigger in that year and a half before where you were like, I got to do this now or it's never going to happen because it's been 5, 6, 7 years and I've been just thinking about doing it and not doing it? Was there something that just clicked and pushed you to just do it?
Yeah, it was the realization that, after deliberating long time, I just decided it's the best time in my life that I could take this risk, that I could see if travel and working while traveling to be my new career, to see if that's something that I could do. I loved my job and I loved the company that I worked for, but I decided that, I just wasn't feeling like there's got to be more. I'm made for something. And maybe this is what it is. And if I don't give it the try now, then I'm going to look back 5 years, 20 years, 50 years from now and say, what if? And I was at the point in my life where I did not want to continue to ask myself, what if? And I had a lot of encouragement from friends and family, and a lot of my friends and people I worked with. That the first thing that they would say to me as I'd bring it up and I'd have conversation with them, they would say, man, that's what everyone wants to do. And if you do it, you're a step ahead. Or I wanted to do that 20 years ago, but I can't now because I have kids and family, or I can't now because it's just too late. All of the things that they can now say I can't. Well, I was at that place where where I felt it was the best time of my life. I don't have any children, and I did not own a home. So I was able to also look at, when is my lease up? Okay, that's when I'm going to leave. So that was in December of, that would be
2014?
14, yeah. And that was also when I turned 30. So it was going to be my year of 30.
That's a pretty good reason to celebrate.
Right. A birthday gift. Let's just wrap it all in there.
And it might sound, for me saying this, well, you just packed everything and sold everything and decided to leave. It might sound inconsiderate if I say it that way, because I have no idea of what were the steps that you had to take in order to make this happen, from saving all your money and stop doing other stuff that you were perhaps doing to save that money to travel, to selling, to packing, to saying goodbye, to really not knowing exactly, from having the safety of a job that you probably had for a few years, then leaving and then not really knowing what next.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing was that safety, that security of the job, because, things were a little easier to sort out. I had my mom, who has a home and an attic with space, my dad, who has an attic with space, grandmother, who has attic with space, and everything else could really be sold, and it didn't have too much value anyways. I lived frugally, and it was time to kind of get new furniture anyways. So letting that go didn't feel so bad. And the clothes, it's good to purge every once in a while. And I probably hadn't done it in a long time because I was saving money. So that was okay. And it was just easier to let go of those things. But the memories, my photos and sentimental things were definitely going to be taken care of here, and I wasn't going to have to worry about those. but I am a planner. So even listening and hearing how I kind of live my life, I've been saving since I've been very young. I was taught at a young age to kind of put money back. You never know what's going to happen. In case you're sick, you want to have 6 months worth of savings kind of set up.
Yeah.
That's kind of, that was drilled into me at a young age. And so I kind of prepared for that. I had also prepared since I was very young to, have a child. I think in college I bought an SUV because I thought, well, if I have a child when I graduate, I was planning for all of these things, these what ifs, and over had too much, right? So it was easier to kind of let go of those things and sell. I had a vehicle, but it was easy again to leave that, and my mom could drive it once or twice a week to keep it going and not have to worry about it, right? So I did hold on to my car. I did not sell that because I just wasn't sure. I didn't want to lose that. I only had one more year to pay on it, and I could do that. And I worked out the numbers, and I said I can manage that with the savings that I have and travel. So let's look at how I can do that. And then I really researched a lot about how to travel, looking into those expenses and what that would cost and what do I need to pack. So I traveled with one bag. That was
a backpack?
A backpack, yes. And a small backpack. I had a few outfits. You change them in and out. I had everything planned out where I could have, 5 shirts and 4 pants and 2 dresses and a pair of hiking boots, a pair of shoes, and 1 pair of dressy or kind of dressy shoes because you want to feel fancy every once in a while. And just got that all really started. I like to research, and I would go down the rabbit hole many nights. I would be up until 2 and 3 a.m. researching, okay, what do I need and what's the best thing, and reading a lot of different blogs and a lot of different books and a lot of different tips. And one of the biggest ones that I came across was how to travel on $50 a day.
Wow.
So then that became my goal, right? I decided, man, if I could do that, then I could travel for over a year, but I'll do it for a year. And, getting into it and looking at safety and what I had planned originally, ended up shifting, as I said. So I looked at my original plans of traveling the world, and I narrowed it down, and I focused on Europe and Australia and New Zealand, because Australia and New Zealand were the 2 places. This is why I had to quit my job, because I wanted to spend a significant amount of time in somewhere so far away. I feel like a lot of times Europe's a little easier to do 2 or 3 weeks at a time. So it was something a little more manageable if I just wanted to take vacation. So I narrowed down a lot of the countries that I had originally planned for. I even had vaccinations to go to Southeast Asia and to go to Africa and different parts of Africa. But I was traveling alone now. So I decided that for my own, peace of mind, but also more so for my mother's peace of mind and my father's peace of mind, that there were certain places that we sat down and we talked about. And they said, well, if you take that out, yeah, I do feel a lot more comfortable now. So that was just, ways that I decided to travel and help manage. But some of those decisions made certain places more expensive and certain places less expensive. And I was able to reach out to my connections, my previous colleagues, friends, different people who have lived in other parts of the world or who currently had friends living in other parts of the world. And it was like this magic that came together. People are so willing and ready to help out somebody who's traveling with a purpose and wants to visit their area. There were times I stayed with friends of a friend of a friend. And there were times that I met a friend who happened to be taking a trip. And they said, okay, well, we're going here. And because I was flexible with my time and my schedule, I moved up. Well, I wasn't going to go visit that country until this time, but it's only a train ride away. I can go stay with this person. I know them. They know the country. They speak the language in places where I don't speak the language. And it was just this puzzle that fit together, and it felt right. And then that was that reassurance along the way of, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Now, when you were saving money, how much money, if you wouldn't mind sharing, how much money did you figure out you needed to save to make it for a whole year traveling?
It's hard to recall right now. I wish I had those numbers in my mind. I have a journal with the ledger, everything written out about what I planned and what I was going to do and what I did, what I ended up spending. I think, so originally it was looking at shared cost. And so when that scaled back some, I was looking at $18,000 for the year.
For the year. And that included your airfares, trains, food, everything.
That was airfare, all travel, food, accommodations, anything that I wanted to do. If I wanted to go to a museum, I was factoring in, when you were visiting places, I couldn't go to all the museums and all of the activities, but I found free museums, or I found free events and looked up different places that I wanted to visit at different times because of festivals or events that they were offering during that time. Or, going to a beach or going on a hike and exploring a region didn't cost that money. Mm-hmm. So I could experience a place without spending money to go to, paid activities.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of free, what are they called? Free tours. When you go to a city tour, there's a lot of places and they work off of tips. So you're tipping them and you're meeting somebody who's probably traveling themselves and they have this job so that they can continue to travel in a lot of cases. So it's really interesting way to meet people as well. And one of the biggest cost I did have a break on. I didn't have to pay for the full cost of my airfare because I had a great friend who I was able to travel on their buddy pass from the U.S.
The airline?
Yeah. So from my big hauls from the U.S. to Europe and from the U.S. to Australia.
Wow, that's a huge break. That's like a no cost to you?
Minimal. You're paying taxes. Mm-hmm. And one time I had a friend who ended up, he wanted to travel as well. He had an 18-month plan. This is a guy I had met, probably I would say 7 years prior when I was traveling with my cousin. Mm-hmm. And we were in Spain and he overheard me speaking and he heard my Texas accent and he said, "Oh, she's from Texas." And that's kind of embarrassing for me to share because I like to think that I don't have that much of an accent. But apparently I did, especially.
Where was he from?
Spain. Well, he was from Chicago, but he was living in Texas at the time.
Okay.
So we both worked in marketing. We ended up, having a conversation and that, we led into a friendship and we just kept in touch and he would talk about him wanting to travel. And I would say, I want to too, let me know if you ever do. So when this worked out, he had been working on an 18-month plan. He said, "You're going to go there. I have this opportunity to take a month with my work and travel and do something for them there. So I'm going to do it." So we coordinated the times. It worked out. And he actually, because of all of his work travel, he gifted me air miles.
Wow.
So that helped out. And we were able to share expenses with hotels and whatnot during that time and car rental because Australia is massive. And to drive, especially the route that we went and the amount of space that we covered in the amount of time in 3.5 weeks, that was one of the more expensive places. But during that time, I went off on my own and I had about a week and a half when I went down to Melbourne and it was, I spent time with and like I said, a friend of a friend, and I had an entire week, and she opened up her home, and I didn't have to pay, for lodging during that time. And she was, around my age and knew the places and the things that she does just to hang out, but also the tourist things that, you must see this, right? So I had a lot of great people that crossed my path along the way that were able to share their experiences or what they would think would be of interest to me. And just that's just given to me, as a gift. I didn't have to pay a travel agency to plan it out for me.
That's amazing. Now, you were initially planning on going on this trip with more people and you ended up going by yourself. Was that scary? I mean, spending so much time by yourself? Because one thing is to go on a 1 week crazy vacation by yourself, and another one is to take a whole year to go see the world, and really you don't know if you're going to have somebody to talk to the next day?
Yes. There were times I felt like I didn't have anyone to talk to and falling into a depression. I was planning on doing it as, as the venture to do something to make money while I was traveling, and work together in a collaboration with somebody else. But when that went away, and I looked at this and I said, I've already quit my job. I'd already given my notice. So, and I have enough money saved where I can do this for a year. I can't not do it now. There was just something in my heart that said, I can't not do it now. And it scared me out of my mind to do it alone. One of my hardest things is being alone. So, I started my travels off with a 2-week silent meditation in Wisconsin, of all places.
Of all places. Of all yoga places.
I know. I have all of the world, but I had done a lot of research, and I found it was just serendipitous. I was doing yoga, and my yoga instructor had mentioned meditation. And I said, I really need to think more about, having some time and space to myself and meditate and work through some of my own energy. And she mentioned that she was going to go to a meditation retreat. And she said, yeah, it's really, they do it all over the world, but there's this place in Kaufman. There's one of these facilities in Kaufman. And that's, just 40 miles from me here in Dallas. And so I said, okay, well, I looked into it, and they were waitlisted, for months, and people are always going and want to go there. And I found in that group, of meditation, I found a place in Wisconsin that had an opening, and it was in the time frame of, what, I can quit I'd already put in my notice, but I kept working a little more and a little more and a little more because they were letting me. They're like, well, we don't want to lose you just yet, so sure, you can keep working. And that had gone on for about 3 months, and this would make me quit and take that first step. And so that's when I made the commitment, and I was able to get a flight there to Wisconsin, and it was, I go and I stay, and it was free. So 2 weeks, silent meditation. I don't think I'd been quiet for 2 hours
ever
on my own, right?
2 weeks of not talking.
Yeah, 2 weeks of not talking. And that really helped prepare me, I think. And I felt confident, and I felt like I could say to my family, most importantly, yes, I'm comfortable. You won't have to worry about me. And technology, let me just say, FaceTime is a savior.
Oh, yeah.
You can pretty much get internet anywhere. Yes, it can cost, and it can cost more so in some places than others, but often you can find the ways through travel blogs, I found I can get this phone card, and it's, more than enough data, and you only have to pay €5, and you don't even have to pay for a plan. Like you can just get it. And having my phone, I'd paid for a phone full before I left, so that it could be unlocked and I could use any SIM card in it while I was traveling. And that was, because of my research, one of the best things that made me feel more secure as well.
Because you were able to communicate all the time.
I was able to communicate. I try to keep it limited, but yes, at some points it just became, my lifesaver, thrown out into the ocean, right? So yeah.
And let me take you back a little bit. How did you feel the day that you put in your resignation notice?
I felt confident. And that's when I knew I'm doing the right thing. I felt elated, and I hadn't felt that way. Up until that point, I was scared. I'm like, well, how is this going to feel? What am I going to do? And I had talked myself into it and saying, okay, this is the best thing, and written it all out. But I still had those feelings. I was still a little uneasy because I was losing that security of having income and not knowing if I would have a job when I came back. I wasn't promised a job when I came back. I just did everything I could with my employer to set up a good relationship and let them know I was interested. We even had conversations to kind of explore the ideas of, can we do this for 6 months possibly, or even 3 months, and me be able to come back to the same job. And just unfortunately, at the end of the day, somebody running a business has to say, I can't do that. It's not something that I can do without. And they also, it's a risk, because I can get out and travel for those 3 months and decide I just want to keep traveling. Right. Yeah. So, that's the way it came down, but we left on really good terms, and I'm really happy that we did, because it ended up being rewarding in the end. But it's that feeling when I said, okay, I'd already given my notice, and it was 3.5 months past, but when it was that last day, and I was walking out of my office for the last day, I felt like I can't wait to see what this next year is and what the rest of my life is.
Wow. I can't imagine that feeling. I can. I mean, I can picture you walking out and feeling that. So, wow, that's huge. I'm so glad you did it. So tell me about how many countries did you visit?
I visited, I think it's 15 countries.
Great.
It was, yes, I think 12 or 13 countries in Europe, and Australia and New Zealand. So New Zealand's not technically a country, right? But it's its own island.
So we'll count it as one.
There we go. I'm adding an extra to make it sounding a little more beefy.
Yes.
I did one of my favorite places. Some of my favorite places are the not so normal. When you think of traveling to Europe, you think of France, Italy, Spain, right? Mm-hmm. And I had been to each of those places prior. Okay. Just for some of them just for a day or two, some of them for a week or 2 weeks. So I fell in love with Italy, and I think I will always have a love for Italy. But
it's amazing.
It is. In my travels, though, I think I found that my favorite places, I loved small towns and villages, and my idea is to really spend time with people. Mm-hmm. So it's to see the scenery and to see the country, but it's really to make those connections with people and make relationships with people. And that's where I kind of focused my energy while I was traveling. So one of those places, and what tops my list every time someone asks, what's your favorite place? It's Rovinj, Croatia. And that is one of those places, and I alluded to it earlier in our conversation. I had a colleague from that had worked with me previously, and she grew up in Croatia, and she had purchased a home there after she had left and moved to the United States, and she'd worked here for many years. She purchased a home, and she would go back and visit family, of course, every year. And she didn't have a trip planned, but something ended up coming up, and she was helping out another friend who had taken on a business venture to do rowing tours. They were both junior champions in rowing.
Wow.
And it's a sport that you look at it, and it's not a very common sport here in Texas, at least to my knowledge. So I really didn't know it growing up, but because of her, I knew about it. And so they emailed me and said, hey, we're actually going to be coming at this time. If you want to join us, you can just book your train to come here at that time. So I did. And I had 10 days, and we went all around Croatia and to Slovenia. And so it was with two women who spoke but the native languages in that area, and that was just magical and fell into place. And I don't think that I would have had the same experience had I not had them.
Yeah.
But I think the people, everyone I encountered, there were times that I wasn't with them and I was going to meet them. And even just every person that I encountered in those 10 days was great. They were friendly and kind and would go out of their way to try to help you. And that was pretty amazing. And then another one of my favorites was I visited a small town in Holland. It's a village.
Mm-hmm.
There were cows, so I felt at home.
I saw some of those pictures. Like you are like up close next to the cows.
Yeah. So my cousins actually, one of the biggest things in wanting to get to Australia and New Zealand is because my cousin had moved and he met his wife and they married there and they lived there. And by the time I quit my job and told them, they said, well, that's awesome. We've been trying to get you here for 6 years. But
however,
we're moving in 3 weeks, so we won't be here.
Wow.
So that's why I was able to push off. I was planning on leaving in December of 2014. They weren't going to be there anymore, so I pushed off my departure date. I ended up ending my trip with Australia and New Zealand, which again, everything works out for a reason and the way it should. In that time, they had moved to Holland, just outside of Amsterdam,
Mm-hmm.
and I was able to visit them. And my cousin and his wife, took me around and showed me all the fun things. And she was just such a help with all of my plans in traveling. A resource that I really leaned on a lot. Because she had traveled herself and she knew what I liked, and she was my own personal travel agent for free. So I like to try to cook for her when I get to see her come here. I'm not the best cook. She's a much better cook than I am, but it's my way of trying to pay her back.
That's so sweet. So now that it's all said and done, that you look back, how do you feel about having done it? And how was it to get back here and start figuring it out again? What am I going to do now?
Mm-hmm. Number one, I wouldn't change it for the world. It's the best thing that I've done, and I did it for myself, and that feels good. Sometimes we don't take enough time for ourselves, and that's something hard for me because I'm always focused on helping other people or making somebody else feel good, or you just on other people, and not really taking the time I need. And this gave me plenty of time to take for myself, sometimes too much, as I said. But
were you having conversations out loud with yourself?
Probably,
sometimes.
probably, yes. And maybe even in hostels out loud, and other people were hearing it, and they probably didn't want to, or they didn't even know what I was saying because they didn't speak English. It was the best thing I could have done. And now I would like to say one thing, and I think I forgot. I haven't really touched on this as we've talked about this, but I took breaks for myself during my travel.
What do you mean?
There was one time during the trip, I actually came back home, and I worked here for 3 months. I said I left my relationship really good with the company I had left before. Well, it just so happens that the person that filled my place and my coworker were both out on maternity leave at the same time. And I get a phone call and an email, and every point of trying to communicate to me, asking me, hey, would you like to work for 3 months while they're out on maternity leave? It could be beneficial. Not sure if you need money. They're trying to say, we're doing you a favor here. But it was the right time for me to take a break, because at the end of all my travels, I was worn out and I was ready to come home. So had I not taken that break, I may not have made it the full length of time that I was traveling. Mm-hmm. And I ended up traveling for about including that, working for 3 months. So it ended up being about 11 months, and 3 months of it, I was back home working.
Wow.
So I took those breaks that I needed. And I had already scheduled in a break for 1 month, spending it with my sister in Chicago. I know it's not international, but my niece was turning 1, and it was a gift that I could say, I'll have these memories with her forever. And in no other situation will I be able to take an entire month to spend with my niece when I'm working in a career that's keeping me in an office. So, I planned those things, and then the unplanned things that came up, I just had to listen to my heart and talk to myself inside and out loud, and talk to other people. I leaned on my friends during this time and said, I had people somebody was checking in with daily, just to let them know I'm safe. And I talked to her. I ended up dating somebody during the time of traveling, and would talk to her, and we would just talk about how am I feeling, and what do you think? And not for them to make the decisions, just to be able to have that other person to bounce it off of. Mm-hmm. And it was so great. And I took the breaks that I needed. Even at the very end of my travels, it was the last month. I ended up getting in a hiking accident. I was all alone. I just felt like I can't do this anymore. My phone was ruined in the water. It's a very embarrassing story, and I will share it with you and the world now. But I fell into a waterfall while hiking on my own. And I am so thankful for my life, because I really could have drowned. And I was at the point where I couldn't get dislodged. I couldn't dislodge my backpack, and I was able to. And in the end, hiking back up.
Wait a minute. You were hiking with your backpack on?
A smaller backpack.
Oh,
Yeah, not my,
not the big one.
I would take a little, it's a little flash bag. You can just
Hmm.
pack a few things in and, have it, some food, some snacks, what you
Yeah.
need. But I had my keys and my phone in my sweatshirt, and somehow I managed to get out of that with keys and phone. The phone worked enough to get me directions back in a foreign country to where I needed to be. And then it stopped working. So I didn't have this communication or all the things that I had along the way. I ended up spending the night in the hospital. Um, I had never been in the hospital before.
Wow.
So these were all a lot of firsts. And I said, I need to take 2 weeks before I finish this trip. And I did. I took 2 weeks before I finished. And I finished the last 2.5 weeks of my trip and got back out, did adventures, went skydiving, went hiking with more waterfalls, and faced my fears. But I needed that time. And had I not listened to myself, I don't think that, I would have had the same experience.
When you say face your fears, what were you most afraid of?
Hearing, I actually, so I never had a fear of water. I mean, I had a respect for water.
Hmm.
I'm scuba rescue certified. When I was in Australia, I was diving with sharks, but also, with precaution. I did not fear water, but after that fall, I was scared just hearing the rushing of the water of a waterfall.
Wow.
So getting back there and doing it, you know, that was my biggest fear. And I think that's facing it.
Now, as we prepare to wrap up this conversation, it took you, oh, maybe 7, 8 years to finally get to do your dream, get to live your dream. For those people who are listening to us now, who might not be in the situation where they can drop everything and go and travel the world, but everyone has their own dream. What words of inspiration can you offer to them to make it happen?
It sounds cliche, and I hate being cliche, but you have to follow your heart and you have to listen to yourself. And you don't want to say, what if 10 years from now? So even if it is your dream is to go, I don't know, if your dream is to see something or do something or meet someone, and you, because I'm a planner, you put out your plans, you talk to somebody and you make sure that they know where you're going and what you're doing, then I say you have to do it. You just have to pull the trigger at some point, and don't let the time that it's taken you to get there discourage you. It took me 7, 8 years, like you said. If I had said, "Oh well, I really should have done it," when I was 20 or when I was 25. No, do it now. And if it takes you another year and a half to save up or look into what the plans will take to get you there, then do it, because you will feel better for it.
And after all, you actually came back and you were able to get a different job with the same company that you were working for.
I was. And as I have said a few times, everything works out the way it should. I've been told that all my life. And it was something hard. It was in my brain. I'm like, yeah, everything works out the way it should. But that comfort, I would struggle against it. I wasn't, still wasn't certain, because, you don't have that security and you really don't know that it's going to work out.
And sometimes people just say that, but maybe they just say that because it actually worked out for them. And until it works out for us, we don't really believe it.
Exactly. And I think it took many things happening that way for me to say, I believe everything that happens the way it should. I did. I was able to come back, and it took some time. I was for about 2 months looking for a job. I ended up taking another job with another company. I was director of marketing. I was doing my own thing. It was very independent. I loved it. I was excited, and I felt like, oh, this is the next chapter and this is what I should do. But the company just wasn't solid enough, and I didn't feel the security in it. And something came up at my old company, and I had, kind of just, and I wasn't even looking. I had called another colleague just to check in about certain events that were going on, just to see how she was doing. Hey, I'm thinking about you. How are you? And then she asks, how are you? And I said, I'm doing good. I'm working for this company. It's good, and she can hear it in my voice. And then she says, well, are you happy? And I was like, yeah, I'm happy. I'm doing this. I'm convincing myself. I'm not sure which one. And she said, well, I didn't think about this before, but this position just came open, and I know it's not what you did before, and I know it may not be what you want to do, but I think there's a really great opportunity because the manager and you really work well together. And, if you're interested, you should reach out to him now. So I did, and took it on a leap of faith and interviewed, and it all just fell right into place. And it was like I didn't miss a beat coming back.
Yeah.
And I'm learning even more about the company and what I want to do and how I can grow. And my experience in the other positions just helped me now in the position I'm in now. And it's been great.
And what is the next chapter in your life? Since you're a planner, I'm going to dare to ask you that question.
So I'm planning some travel, but it's just a vacation. I didn't make it to Greece, and that is my next big place to travel. So we'll see if we can make that happen this year. I've gotten a lot more comfortable with last minute travel planning and booking a flight on standby and getting there and booking a hotel or Airbnb accommodations the day of. So we'll see if we can make that happen this year. And as far as plans, I'm really working hard at the position that I'm in and looking at the opportunities that can give me and where I can grow. And, hopefully I do have that family soon, or, the home,
Yeah.
right? So I've got my own place, and it's a small loft, and I'm building my furniture and the things that I want, and building it all back up now. And so I'm taking it one day at a time now.
I love that.
Yeah. It's a little easier now, having forced myself to go through that for about a year.
Yeah. Now you have something more constant and back to normal.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, this isn't so bad. I mean, I'm taking it one day at a time, but I'm not having to I don't have to worry about where I'm staying tonight, or are my groceries going to go bad, or,
Yeah.
did I pack everything, or did I leave something at that last place? So, yeah.
Excellent, Lauren. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with you. I know we could talk for hours, but we try to get the most we could out of this 1 hour. And I really appreciate you sharing with us. Anything else, any last words that you have for our audience?
One thing I would like to say is I really admire you for what you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
You had asked me about these travels and kind of interest, and we've talked about it for some time, and it's just been a conversation. And like I said, I like making those relationships and connections with people along the way, and you're one of them.
Thank you.
And it's things like this that help me feel like I've made the right connections, and I'm enjoying life a lot more.
I'm so flattered. Thank you so much. What you did is one of those things that I do wonder, what if, I had dropped everything and go see the world? But my situation is much different because I have a family and kids and they're in school, so I don't feel like that's a possibility. But I do see in my future sometime taking, maybe it's not going to be a year, but it will be an extended period of time to explore the world, maybe traveling, I don't know, during the summer, doing something even here in the United States, getting an RV. I don't know. I'm just tossing ideas out there. But I would like to see. I've been fortunate to be able to travel to many countries too, Europe. My family originally is from Lebanon, so I've been there, and it's an amazing experience to see where you come from, and the mountains where your grandparents lived. I mean, that experience of going back to Lebanon and meeting my family, like my dad's family for the first time ever, it was really life-changing. And I want my kids to be able to experience that, different cultures. Being from Mexico, living in the United States, they've gone back and forth, and they know, things are different, and I want them to see more of the world, and I think they're curious too.
Well, you let me know when you either go somewhere or you get the RV because I'll join you.
We'll team up on that one.
All right.
Sounds great, Lauren. Thank you so much. I am honored to have you on the show and to have you share your story. I really appreciate you, and we'll talk later.
Thank you.
What do you guys think about her story? Wouldn't you love to one day be able to drop anything that you have and be able to pursue that one dream that's keeping you up at night? So don't forget to contact me either via Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook. I'm everywhere. Just search Yezmin Thomas and you're going to find me. And send me an email as well. You can contact me at podcast@yezminthomas.com. Just to let you know, I'm already working on the next episode, and we are going to talk to a radio DJ. Now, I'm going to give you a warning. She is from Mexico. I am from Mexico. So you're going to have two Mexicans taking over the microphone. Good luck with us. All right? Warning out there for you guys, but please do tune in. That's going to be next episode on One Take. Make sure you're sharing the show. Let me know what you think about it and share it. Share it with your friends. Share it on Facebook, on social media. Help me make this a successful show. And if you have some time and you can go on iTunes and leave me a written review, I would very much appreciate that too. Until next time, remember to take it easy. I'm going to talk to you guys on the next take.